Well, with 2023 coming to a close, it's finally time to talk about my top 10 most anticipated movies of the new year. And alright, obviously I'm a little late to the game with this list, I know that, but let's be honest, none of the movies I'm talking about today are coming out in this dumpster fire of a movie month we call January. And I feel like a lot of movies right now are swapping release dates, getting delayed, whatever, so I tried to the best of my abilities to keep this list to movies I know are coming out in 2024. Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse isn't on here, unfortunately, because let's not kid ourselves, that movie is not coming out this year. I want to see that more than anyone, but it's just not going to happen. So without further ado, here are my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2024. Coming in at number 10 is Maxine. If you've spent any time on the channel, you know that I'm a massive horror movie and slasher film fan, and I really enjoyed the two movies that came before this one. So it's cool that we get to see what Ty West is going to do to complete this trilogy. I'm not the biggest Ty West fan on the planet by any means. I like a couple of his earlier films, but for the type of horror fan that I am, he's really hitting that sweet spot in these previous two movies. But what really has my interest with this one is that he's swapping out that 30s setting and 70s setting of the previous two movies and going with an 80s glitz and glamour LA setting. Sign me up. I'm sure Mia Goth will be just as good as she was in the two previous entries. It's gonna have a thumping soundtrack, and it'll be filled with stylistic kills for weirdos like me. Cannot wait for this movie. Coming in at number 9 is Challengers, and I feel like I can't really put into words why I'm excited to see this film. Luca Guadagnino keeps coming out with movies that on paper the plot sounds like something I'm not really all that interested in. Then I see the trailer and I'm like, all right, he can count on my butt being in a seat. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the erotic drama is kind of dying, but this guy is just doing everything in his power to keep it alive. Zendaya, a movie about tennis, a love triangle. It's going to be entertaining. What can I say? Coming in at number 8 is Deadpool 3, and even though the MCU is in absolute shambles right now, as long as there is blood pumping through my veins and breath in my body, I am going to be pumped for Deadpool 3. Hugh Jackman's picking up the claws again. Deadpool is joining the MCU. There is a whole lot that could go terribly wrong, but if they nail this one, it is going to be unbelievable. Now, usually, I'm pretty against what Marvel's been doing recently, where it seems like they just want to feed the fan service beast, give us a new meaningless cameo every 30 seconds so everyone will just clap and cheer at the screen, instead of actually giving us anything substantial story-wise and character development-wise. But Deadpool does that kind of break the fourth wall stuff perfectly. They're gonna make fun of Disney, they're gonna make fun of Fox. I'm all for it. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman's fake off-screen rivalry really sets the stage for this movie in the best way. And even though I wish it happened much earlier in the MCU before things started to get stale, this is really a dream project. Coming in at number 7 is Gladiator 2, and knowing me, this had to end up somewhere on my list because in my opinion, Ridley Scott is a top 3 movie director of all time. Absolutely love the guy, but there's a lot of question marks with this project around which version of him we're gonna get. You know, his filmography in recent years has been a little shaky to say the least. On one side, you've got House of Gucci and Napoleon, but on the other, he's still capable of giving us movies like The Last Duel. That was my absolute favorite movie of 2021. The cast this time around is absolutely stacked, being led by Pedro Pascal, Denzel Washington, and Paul Mescal. Ridley Scott really excels whenever he plays around in this time period, and I'm sure all of the action sequences are going to be massive and badass. This is a day one watch. Coming in at number 6 is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and this is one of those movies that before the trailer came out, I was pretty worried about where they were going to go with it, and I don't know if it would have cracked this top 10 list. I think the last trilogy of films they made in this universe is one of the most underappreciated and best trilogies of movies in the past 20 years. But now that I see the vibe they're going for, I'm in. This one still has a lot to prove, obviously. It could totally crash and burn and maybe show that this IP should have been given a rest a little while longer before they dive into more films. But from what I've seen, I can't wait to get a peek at it. Coming in at number 5 is Alien Romulus, and this might be the most interesting pick on this list for me personally, because man, do I love the Alien franchise. I can totally admit there are a few entries in this series that aren't up to snuff, but looking at something like Covenant and Prometheus, those are my jam, I can't help it. When I heard that Fede Alvarez was going to be the guy directing this movie, I was massively pumped because he did The Evil Dead back in 2013, the kind of reboot, kind of sequel to the Evil Dead franchise. Also my favorite in that series of films, which I know is kind of a hot take, but I absolutely love it. So if there's anyone that's going to take over the reins to this franchise, I'm very excited that it's going to be him. We know this new movie takes place in between Alien and Aliens, so it'll be cool to see what story they come up with that goes in between both of those. It's not going to be some crazy big scale blockbuster production, which is what I want. I want to go back to the roots of this like isolated and claustrophobic experience. So yeah, I'm hoping we have another big win for this franchise. Coming in at number 4 is Nosferatu, and Robert Eggers is 3 for 3 in my book. He's never let me down. So if there's anyone that I want to helm the remake of this gothic horror classic, it's gotta be him. Eggers just has such a unique style about him, and paired with this narrative, it's really a match made in heaven. This is clearly a big time passion project for him. I think it's taken a little bit for this one to get off the ground too, so he's been focused on this one for a while. Cannot wait to see what he's gonna do with it. This one is helmed by an awesome cast led by Willem Dafoe, Bill Skarsgård, and Nicholas Hoult. And if this one gets as weird and dark as Eggers usually likes to get, which why wouldn't it? We're in for a real treat. Coming in at number 3 is Furiosa, and this one is so insanely high up on my list just because Mad Max Fury Road exists. That's one of the best action movies ever made, so obviously a prequel to that film is going to be highly anticipated for someone like me. Anya Taylor-Joy looks badass as the young character Furiosa. Chris Hemsworth's in there riding a chariot of motorcycles into the battlefield, and that crazy son of a bitch George Miller is back behind the camera. We could really have something special here, folks. At the end of the day, I'm just an action guy through and through, always have been, always will be, so the fact that this movie's coming out, and the last time George Miller made one of these Mad Max films, it changed the genre for the better. I couldn't be more excited for this film. Coming in at number 2 is Mickey 17, and I think we all know at this point that Bong Joon-ho just cannot miss lately, so I can't wait to see what he's gonna do here, especially now that he's paired with Robert Pattinson, one of my favorite actors working today, especially ever since he came out with Good Time in 2013. He's quickly becoming one of those guys for me that if he's in a movie, I have to go out and see it. Now, one thing that has me super excited about this film is it's supposed to be some insane, large-scale, mind-bending sci-fi epic, a genre we know he can probably knock out of the park after seeing something like Snowpiercer that had a ton of sci-fi elements jammed into it. But getting to the bad news, this movie did just get delayed from its original late March release date. I do still think we're going to be getting it in 2024, and if anything, this is just priming it for a better chance at an award season run. But we need this movie this year. I need this movie this year. But coming in at number 1 is Dune Part 2. Yes, it's my most anticipated movie of this year. Yes, it was my most anticipated movie of last year. And yes, it'll be my most anticipated movie of next year if they delay it again. But please, God, do not do that to me for a third time. The ensemble was already incredible when you look at who was in the first movie, but now this time around, they're improving it even more by adding Austin Butler, Christopher Walken, Florence Pugh. Are you kidding me? Like, it's not even fair at this point. Denis Villeneuve might be the coolest director working in Hollywood today. He works in so many different genres and somehow always knocks it out of the park. You look at movies like Sicario, Prisoner, Enemy, Arrival. All of those are bangers. I'm actually still working my way through reading the novel. I'm right at the part where the first movie leaves off, so I'm kind of just debating whether I should just wait until the second movie comes out. Either way, cannot wait to get my butt back to Arrakis in a couple months. So there you have it, guys. My ranking of the 10 most anticipated movies of 2024. There are so many hyped up films releasing later this year, so let me know in the comments below, what movies are you super excited about and you can't wait to get to the theater to watch? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys at the next one.